Good afternoon and welcome to everyone on Love 101 FM, Facebook, and YouTube Live. This is Family Time. Family Time is about your issues and your relationships. It's about your at home family, your community family, and your global family. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families, which will lead to healthy nations. So stay with us and please connect with us via all our platforms. Friend us on Facebook at FLM F Family Life Ministries. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries FLMJA, and on Instagram. Keep up with what's happening at Simply FLMJA. While Family Time is a family program rather, we'd like to caution that it may on the odd occasion touch on what some may consider mature subject matters. So your discretion is advised. I'm Joan Pinkney, and I'll be your host for this program for this evening. You are ready to get married? You've found the spouse to be? You want to start a family and you picture that white picket fence with a swing in the yard. Sorry, with a swing set in the yard. You can't wait to get closer than you are now to face your forever love and start that 50-50 life where he or she will fulfill your needs. Those read my mind needs. How many myths did I just mention? What are the myths and truths about marriage? Today's discussion will have you knowing what you need to know before bedtime. This is for single and married persons. So listen up, listen tight. It's time to learn about the myths and truths about marriage. As usual, there is a lot to talk about. And while we may do that, we want to hear from you. Here is our feedback question. What myths can you share about marriage? Send your answers via WhatsApp text and WhatsApp voice notes to 876-997-3125. Try to keep those voice notes to no longer than 30 seconds. You can also watch us and comment live on Love 101 FM Facebook and Love 101 FM YouTube. We'll be right back with our special guest, Sonia Winter.
You could call yourself a Christian, but have more churchianity traits and behaviors. What's the difference? Well, one draws people to an institution, the other draws people to Christ. Join us on Tuesday, April 1 for The Rock with Bishop Harris Steve Blair and guest Errol Bean and Rickwen Allen as they look at the topic Christianity and churchianity. For some, churchianity may have replaced Christianity. Is that you? Let's talk about the difference. That's The Rock this Tuesday, April 1 at 10 a.m. on the family station Love 101.
Welcome back to Family Time on Love 101. And welcome to our special guest, Sonia Winter. Lady Sonia is an associate clinical psychologist and tea house therapy founder. Welcome, Lady Sonia, and how you do?
Give thanks, give thanks. Thank
Yes,
you so much for always having me
absolutely.
back.
Yes, man. It's because you talk up the things, so we like when you talk up the things. So it's really nice to have you, and we're gonna talk about something real interesting, as you are already aware. But let me say something to the audience. Remember, the question is, what myths can you share about marriage? WhatsApp, text, and WhatsApp voice notes to 876-997-3125. Try to keep those voice notes to no longer than 30 seconds. You can also watch us and comment live on Love 101 Facebook, Love 101 YouTube. Let's get going. Myths and truths about marriage. That's, in fact, our topic today. You could be married for 5, 15, or 50 years and still be holding on to some myths about marriage. Why? And why are those myths still around in your life? We're going to dive into the discussion now, and we're going to ask our guests to tell us what's the rationale behind believing some marriage myths.
Hmm. I
Mm,
think well, first of all, myths are often based on what we call anecdotal information. So,
right.
a particular person will promulgate or make declarations about marriage and so on based on their own personal experience, whomever that person might be. It might be somebody who is a married person, a person who has just observed a couple, a married couple from the point of view of being a child or a relative or something like that. It
Mm,
may be somebody who can observe a number of couples within their community, within their church or whatever. But it's based on information from a relatively small subset, you know.
absolutely.
If you think about it, a lot of times for example, Dr. J, you will move in certain circles,
Hmm.
and those circles will often be what we call homogeneous, in that
Right.
you have shared interest, you probably have you come from a shared community, you
Hmm.
probably have a lot that makes you similar in nature,
Right.
right? And so what you will observe will be more relative to those communities that you sit in and that you're
Right.
observing. But
Right.
what we're seeing in a given community might not be the same thing that might be happening elsewhere.
Absolutely.
It might be very different in another community, in a
Hmm.
different socioeconomic group, in a
Right.
different, in a different reality. So myths often are generated when we kind of use what we call anecdotal information to make assumptions about the whole, as it
Right.
were.
Right.
And so sometimes we'll see, if we're thinking, since we're talking specifically about marriage, we'll often see marriages that work, let's say,
Hmm.
and so we will extrapolate that, well, if it works in this marriage,
Right.
then we can assume it's going to work in all marriages
Or
in the
marriage.
same way.
Yes.
and
Yes.
and that might be a myth, because
Yes.
there can be very important differences between the marriage that you're observing and
Right.
many other marriages around you. So to answer your question really quickly, myths obtain because we assume that what we see or experience in our own communities or wherever we go
Right.
can be extrapolated or can be assumed to be characteristic of a greater population of people, and it
Right.
might not necessarily be so for a myriad of reasons.
Absolutely. So what we're saying is that what happens in this context may not necessarily happen in another, and the context could mean not just, for example, in Jamaica, but it could also mean across the world, across territories, across regions, and so on. Good.
Absolutely.
So some of them is one of them that happens is that um, you don't have to work at marriage, because once you get married, you're in love. You're in love, so you don't need to work at it, because it will just flow naturally.
Mhm,
Amen, in Jesus' name.
mhm. Yeah. You know what I like to say? I love to use metaphors
Yeah.
um, to make sense of things. And what I would say is, entering into a marriage is like starting any important endeavor, right? It
Mhm.
takes effort, it takes sacrifice, it takes commitment to make
Mhm.
it successful, right? So it's any endeavor that is important to you. It probably doesn't come very easily. It comes with
Uh,
a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as they say, and marriage is no different. I think that the only difference with marriage really is that because often the recruitment, let's call it, the early days of
Mm.
the marriage can be so heady and giddy and intoxicating, right?
Yeah.
That in the early days, those sacrifices and that adjustment come easily because
Mm.
we're so intoxicated by the early hormones and so on that are flowing in the early days of the relationship. It feels
Right.
like an
Right.
easy,
The honeymoon phase.
absolutely. You've met your soulmate, you
Mm.
connect, and
Yes. Yes.
it's a wonderful feeling, and it's not hard to understand why you would think that that is what is going to keep you going for the next 70 years of this marriage. um
Right.
so the way it starts off for many people, leads us to believe that it will always be as effortless as it is in the beginning. But that's not so. Like any endeavor, it does take a
Hmm.
lot of hard work and
Right.
sacrifice.
Absolutely. Another myth is that having sex with the same person for the rest of your life will become boring.
Hmm. What I would say to that is,
And
Mhm.
uh,
No, go
go ahead.
ahead. What I would say to that is, sex, like any endeavor, also there are different things, there are different components to what will make sex enjoyable or not, and
Right.
those things also change at different phases of your life and different phases
Ah,
of your relationship as
absolutely.
well. You know, and so yes, again, if you just lay down your hands and expect that it's always going to be as
Mm,
intoxicating and giddy as it was in the honeymoon period,
mm.
sure, you're going to be in for a bit of a rude awakening,
Yes,
in order
yes,
to make sex have that powerful sense of connection that it can give to two people. It
yes.
takes deliberacy, being deliberate about it, being it sometimes can be effortful either to make time or to understand your partner from a sexual point of view, etc.
Mm,
If you're not deliberate about it, it
yes,
can fall into disrepair.
yes, yes. For want of a better word. So
Yeah.
you have to work on it so that it doesn't get boring because by nature sex is has its one can have its one two three, but
Mm,
you have to work on it so that it spreads across to 1 to 100,
absolutely.
and then life happens.
For
Life
sure.
happens, in our developmental stages things happen. so
Mhm.
so so the whole business of marriage should be 50-50.
Mm,
I meet you halfway. I want you to hold that the answer to that question though, or that statement, because we're going to go to another break, or at least yes. So I want to and remind the listeners that we don't want to leave you out of the discussion. Remember to answer our feedback question. What myths can you share about marriage? We're looking forward to what you have to say. Send your answers via WhatsApp text and WhatsApp voice notes to 876-997-3125. Try to keep those voice notes to a low of 30 seconds, please, right? You can also watch us and comment live on Love 101 FM Facebook and Love 101 FM YouTube. And just so you know, the numbers for FLM head office is 876-920-1034 and 876-926-8101. And our head office, of course, is in Kingston. So stick around. There's more to come. We look forward to sharing with you. Soon be back.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Life is on the go, but you got this runs with boneless sardine. Nothing made easy to prepare. Healthy, tasty, have it anytime, anywhere. Fuel your body day and night with a taste of the seaside. No challenge you can fight with Brunswick boneless sardines by your side. Doesn't slow down, and neither do you. Brunswick boneless sardines are packed with omega-3 and ready to eat right out of the can. Try the hot peppers, the delicious olive oil, or the new spicy Thai chili on its own or on a cracker. However you like it. Brunswick boneless sardines. Snacking made easy. Snacking made healthy. Snacking made tasty.
Sit and pass your CXC Cape City and Girls Math and English exams in only 6 to 12 months at the Station College. Start online and face-to-face classes in May and sit exams in January or May, June of next year. In math, English, chemistry, biology, IT, start international course in practical, geriatric, and pediatric nursing, phlebotomy, plumbing, early childhood education, and more. Register this week and win your SOPA course or subjects for free. Visit us in Kingston, Spanish Town, Ocherius, and St. Elizabeth. Call us at 356-4167.
Welcome back to Family Time. My name is Joan Pinkney, and I am the one guiding the ship in this program this evening. We're talking about myths and truths about marriage. This is Family Time on Love 101 FM, and I'm gonna invite Lady Sonia to continue to respond to the myth that I indicated to her earlier. 50-50, is that a myth?
Let's see. I would say it applies in some cases, not in all. If you think it's going to be 50-50 in terms of how we share parenting roles, or share finances, or share domestic roles and so on, definitely not. That's not going to happen at all. That's highly unlikely to happen, certainly, and even if it does, in some cases it may not be sustainable. People might fall back into old habits very easily, and so on. I think however, where I would say a 50-50 ratio might be important would be with regards to commitment to resolving difficulties that we have, that both of us are willing to come to the table, find constructive ways to voice our needs, find constructive ways to understand the point of view of the other person. I think it requires a sort of mirror image of commitment here to really ensure that that's what it requires. At least we're still not always able to do it, all of us, at all times, but I think a commitment to try and work through the difficult times, the difficult conversations, the difficult times in our life, almost, to be able to talk it through, to learn how to negotiate different situations. I would say is where you kind of need both people rolling up their sleeves,
be on board,
and being on board. But outside of that, I don't think, some days, I will never wash the dishes, maybe, and my husband may be the one who will always wash the dishes because he can't stand to see them in the sink, whereas I can happily see them in the sink for 3 weeks and don't have a problem.
I was just gonna say that there may be some things that each member of the couple has to carry the full 100, because even that this person is ill, or for whatever reason is not physically there in some respects, because of whatever the arrangement is that both would agree on, so sometimes there is, but I think the point that you're making is the attitude and the commitment that you have toward the marriage. Well, I'm going to ask you to think about any myth that comes to mind, Lady Sonia, while I read some text messages from your own experiences, that is. Gregory says marriage is easy facts. And he says, no, marriage is hard work. So he's not just giving the myth, but he's also giving a response. And then there's Suzette from Mount Friendship Center. And she says, good afternoon. Marriage is not 50-50 partnership. It is 100-100. Absolutely. Yes. We also have a voice note. So let's hear the voice notes from Brother Arnold.
Auntie Colin, good afternoon on your panel discussion and co-host here. To me concerning, this cannot be boring if you and your partner have true love over the years. Sex become boring when one gets start to mistrust, when
Mm,
one want to cheat.
mm,
That's the only time I believe sex should have become boring. Yes,
yes. Thank you
when
for
you
that.
start to mistrust each other and
Yes.
one want to cheat. But as long as the figure is on, the high tension wire is on towards the toilet. Can't be boring, man. Can't
Thank
be
you,
boring.
Brother Arnold. The extension where I tell you we can really speak in various metaphors to bring out the point.
Mhm.
But thank you so much, listeners, for your comments, and please keep them coming. We want to hear from you. So, Lady Sonia, any myth that comes to mind, any that you
Well,
hear from your little
sure.
weenie and a grow.
Well, I would love to. I'd love to just comment on what Brother Arnold said in terms.
Yes,
I love the metaphor of the high tension wires, but what I
yes.
want to say to him is, life can change those high tension wires. You know,
Because light
it's
can
not
go on.
so absolutely. Brother Arnold, you ever have a big stressor in your life and you see how quick the high tension wires
Yes,
suddenly they're not carrying any electricity. You lose your job, for example, and don't know where you're next. Yeah, hurricane can pop them down.
yes,
That
yes.
stress can broke down the high tension wires
But
big
but
time.
but
You
here my combat now. You have to know how to light the tilly lamp.
know?
You have to get the bottle torch. You have to know how to get the candle
For
and make it
sure.
work.
For sure. But also, Dr. J, sometimes the light going grow dim,
Yes,
you've seen
yes,
couples
yes.
go through trauma, the
Absolutely,
loss of
absolutely.
parents, loss of a child,
Yeah.
loss of income, loss of stability, illness, all of
Yes.
those things
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
stressors from outside the relationship that can really affect
Yeah.
just how you show up as a person,
Yes.
but also the first thing that takes a hit, as when things aren't going right, is your sex life. When
Yeah.
things aren't going
Yeah.
right, that's the first thing that gets it. You're going through depression or anxiety or anything like that,
All of that
sex is
slows
the
down.
first
Yes.
thing that
Yes.
that takes a hit, so
Yeah, so I think though what you said initially, the commitment is really very important.
yes, exactly.
Understanding your spouse and recognizing that life will happen, and the commitment, the decision to stick
Mhm.
with it, no matter what. And someone says in the darkness, it's okay too. There are dark times, but it's okay too.
Absolutely.
So it
That's
was
when the 50-50 commitment going to get you through those dark times, you stick
absolutely,
it out.
absolutely, absolutely. So, just in case you're just joining us, listeners, our special guest this evening is, I call her Lady Winter, but she is Sonia Winter, and this complexity of marriage is what gives us rise to the differing ideas and opinions that we hear as it relates to what makes a good marriage and what it takes rather to make it work. This is why we are debunking some myths today. So let's continue with the discussion.
Yeah.
Another myth is getting married to your first love at 18 will never work out. Mm-mm-mm. Absolutely not true.
Not at all, not at all. Again,
um, mhm. Go ahead.
yeah, again, I think it is a commitment. Young people can be committed as well. I think what is true though is that the younger you are, is the more dramatic changes you're going to go through as a person. You know what I
Right,
mean? In terms of
right.
your philosophy on life, your priorities, your sense of yourself. So young two people getting together at a young age, they're really marrying a moving target, as it a very dramatic
Yes,
moving
yes,
target,
yes,
because
yes,
where
yes.
there's a metamorphosis that continues to
Yeah, yeah,
happen
yeah.
right up until your prefrontal cortex is completely developed at 26 or 25
Yes,
or
or
26.
somewhere there. Yes, yes,
Exactly. And
yes.
so, and through
Absolutely.
that metamorphosis, a lot of disconnect can happen. But even that commitment can get you through to the other end as well.
Yes, and that is why, and I can't help but mention, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, that premarital counseling is so important
For sure.
because it helps you to anticipate. It helps you to understand that, hey, I'm in this wonderful, bed of roses, so to speak, right now, but the roses may dry up, or the smell of the roses may not be as charming as I thought it was, or life changes, and it's not roses anymore, but it's the stem which have maca, so all these all these various things should be part of the premarital discussion and insight and awareness. I have a message here from Suzette, and Suzette's from Friendship. She says menopause can pop down the high tension.
Mhm, mhm.
That is a discussion by itself, you know that,
Right
right?
here, amen.
You have to know how to tell time and fan the fire. I mean, we need to have Suzette on the program to really speak to these things, but she's spot on because menopause, andropause, all of those things, and it's bad enough if both members of the couple are going through those things simultaneously, but very often you find that they're going through it different periods and having, of course, having different symptoms, so it can really be quite an experience.
For sure.
Another myth is that marriage changes. Let me use this one. People cannot or can change. Very often we see the red flags, and sometimes we still go into the relationship. We say, "Oh, they'll change. Marriage will change them." What do you say about that, Lady
Mm.
Winter?
I would say that marriage can modify certain things. In fact, there are a lot of different conceptual models about how
Mhm.
relationships work and so on. And the conceptual model that I'm most familiar with and have most of my training in is the Gottman model,
Mhm.
which hinges on mountains and mountains of empirical evidence and so on. And what was one of the most, how should I say, rewarding findings that I found in many of their studies is that through marriage you can go
Mhm.
through the most profound personal development, right? And that's one of
Yes.
the
Yes.
interesting findings that they found. So for example, um two people, they get together, they go through the honeymoon period, and then after the honeymoon period and the masks come off, then our true inclinations start
Yes.
to
Start
show.
to show.
So for example, let's say one person is a huge introvert, right? And the other
Mm.
is very extroverted. But there were these masks, and they come to the place now where they're seeing this disconnect in each other. And one of the
Yes.
things that many of this Gottman studies showed is that if your commitment can get you to the place where you're willing to work through that difference, then you get to a place not so much where you're changing who you are, but
Right.
you grow to a place of acceptance of the other person without judgment. And that very acceptance represents huge personal growth, as it
Wow.
were, you know?
Lady Winter, we're going to go to a break. I mean, what you've just said is so profound, and I thank you so much for breaking it down the way you have. This is Family Time, live on Love 101 FM, YouTube, and Facebook. It's produced by Family Life Ministries. For our social media interaction, we want you to tell us, what myths can you share about marriage? Let us know via our WhatsApp text or WhatsApp voice notes at 876-997-3125. And of course, try to keep those voice notes to a low of 30 seconds. You can also watch us and comment live on Love 101 FM and Love 101 YouTube. We want to hear from you. This evening, we have been sharing on myths and truths about marriage. It's time to take a break. But before we go, we're going to take the word from Reverend Mike after we come back from the break. So don't go anywhere.
Your CXC Cape City and Girls Math and English exams in only 6 to 12 months at Distinction College. Start online and face-to-face classes in May and sit exams in January or May, June of next year. In math, English, chemistry, biology, IT, start international course in practical, geriatric, and pediatric nursing, phlebotomy, plumbing, early childhood education, and more. Register this week and win your silver course or subjects for free. Visit us in Kingston, Spanish Town, Ocherius, and St. Elizabeth. Call us at 356-4167.
On the next Campus Connection, we'll be looking at Staying the Course Part 1. In the context of education, staying the course generally refers to maintaining a consistent and effective educational approach, curriculum, or teaching method, even in the face of challenges or changes. Join us with guests from the Michael University College's Batch 169, Miss Erica Bennett and Mr. Micton Ibang, as they share about their teaching journey. And don't miss our special interview with Mrs. Sophia Tomlinson Manning, Master Teacher and Events Coordinator from Hopewell High School, located in Hanover. Campus Connection is brought to you by Heart NSDA Trust. Skill is power. That's Campus Connection, Tuesday, April 1 at 5:30 p.m. Only on the family station, Love 101.
Come back to Family Time. You are on Family Time, and I'm your host, Joan Pinkney. Let's get a word from Reverend Mike in this episode of WTF, Word to Flesh Moments with Reverend Mike.
Marriage is a covenant between one man and one woman, ordained by God and approved by Him as honorable. It was designed to give participants an opportunity to express mutual love, intimacy, sex, respect, and submission. It is to be the foundation for successful partnership between a man and woman and the place to start and raise family. Last but not least, marriage is to be a reflection of God's relationship with humanity. Sadly, for most human beings listening, all that I just mentioned, perhaps except sex, are strange concepts for marriage that our culture does not help us to embrace. Instead, women are taught to yearn for a tall, dark, handsome, and rich man, while men are expected to find a pretty piece of eye candy, a trophy that has never been touched by human hands, and one who has little more sense than an armchair. These concepts are not in the Bible. So if you're about to take that honorable step of marriage, I hope you have fallen in love with an honorable person, and you yourself are also an honorable person, for it is difficult for dishonorable people to build an honorable marriage. I hope you have found someone who is not afraid to communicate and express mutual love, intimacy, and sex. I hope you have grown to love someone who, like you, will give and receive respect and be willing to submit to your loving leadership and your loving help, so that together you can build a successful partnership and a place to start and raise a family and represent God Himself here on earth. Anything else will be pure grief and unhappiness. I'm Reverend Mike from Fellowship Tabernacle, and we just had a WTF moment.
Thank you, Reverend Mike. Solid words, really fitting smack into our discussion this evening. If you're just joining us, we're happy to have you. And if you have been with us all evening, we're so happy that you have remained with us. You're tuned to Love 101, and this is Family Time, brought to you by Family Life Ministries. Family Life Ministries provides counseling for people of all kinds of issues and of all ages. Our show this evening is about myths and truths about marriage. We consider these myths, whether we're married or not, and many times, if we believe them or not, they determine our attitude toward marriage. And so our special guest is here to help us to think through some of these myths. Or Lady Sonia Winter, associate clinical psychologist and Tea House therapy founder. Welcome back, Lady Winter. We have been talking about these myths. So let's continue with the discussion. But before we do, we have a text message from Marie in Yonkers, New York. And she says, "Good evening, Doc and Sonia. What about when midlife crisis steps in and the man thinks he's just found his age paper, then the roses become thorn? I've seen it happen." Absolutely. And we kind of hinted to it earlier when we mentioned that midlife sometimes really can put us spokes in the wheel, so to speak, and you have to know now how to navigate those issues. Any comment with that?
Mhm. Yes, I think what Marie just identified is yet another stressor that can hit a union, as they go
Yes.
through the life stages of a marriage, different stressors can happen along the way. And this midlife crisis is one such one. We spoke about menopause, that's another one. Loss, grieving,
Mm,
illness, financial challenges, all sorts of things are stressors that can hit
yes.
a union. And
Yes.
I think what is important is to recognize that if the couple, and this is also where, to build on what you said, Dr. J, is this is also where maybe couples therapy can help as well.
Yes.
And couples therapy is about helping you to remain allies with each other,
Mm, yes.
facing the challenges together, whether it is
Absolutely.
one person is going through a midlife crisis or any other crisis.
Mm,
How do we make the crisis, the enemy that we two together as allies are confronting as a union, rather
yes.
than the crisis is coming in between us, and,
Yes.
and break,
Separating
that's really how I think marriage counseling and relationship counseling
will
can
help.
help you to
Yes.
navigate those difficult challenges of your life, of which a midlife crisis is but one of many.
Yes, but one of many. And sometimes more than one will raise
Coincide.
themselves within. Absolutely. Let's take a quick time check. It is now 7 minutes after 6. Continuing with the myths, a good marriage has no problem.
Mm. I think I think that goes hand in hand. That's probably the mirror image of another myth that says, if there's conflict in
Mm,
a relationship, it's a sign of an unhealthy relationship. And that's
mm,
another thing that Gottman's research showed. He showed that in healthy relationships where there's a lot of fulfillment in the union,
mm.
conflict is normal, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
and conflict can be caused because of outside stressors. One
Mm-hmm,
person is having difficulty at work, and so it creates conflict in how we relate to each other.
mm-hmm,
Or it can be conflict coming up between us. We have a different need, our needs are not in sync, or how we're relating to each other is creating conflict. But
mm,
what determines a successful marriage, and this is from Dr. Gottman's Institute, observing successful marriages, and
mm-hmm.
what he noticed is that there were the same number of conflicts in happy marriages as there were in unsuccessful marriages. And the
Absolutely.
one thing that was different was how both people handle those conflicts and
Ah,
handle those
absolutely.
differences and
Absolutely.
disagreements. They
Yes. Yeah.
seem to have some fundamental skills to confront
Mm,
the disagreement, but still maintain respect for each other in how they do it. They had
yeah.
conflict resolution strategies. They knew how to repair.
Mm,
They knew how to say an effective, heartfelt "I apologize." They knew how to repair an injury during the conversation. They could save the
yes.
conversation when the conversation was going off the rocks, as it were.
Yes. Yes.
They
Yeah.
were able to remain open-minded to try
Yes.
to understand the other person's opposing but different point of view. So they
Right.
had interesting skills that helped them to
Mm-hmm,
navigate conflict successfully, so that, here's the interesting thing, so that when they got out at the other end of the conflict, their
mm-hmm.
bond was even tighter. So the conflict
Ah,
created intimacy as well
absolutely.
that served
Absolutely.
them. So
I,
a
I, I,
marriage is not a healthy marriage is not harmonious, but both individuals have tremendous skills to
yes.
navigate disagreements and conflict well.
Yes, absolutely. I heard a lady, she was sharing when her husband died, how much they were able to work through their conflict. And he said she was usually the one that took a while to come around, she said. But what she admired about him, I mean, and lots of things she admired, but one of the things she said, when they had a conflict, they would have a as a routine, they would have a cup of tea at a particular time of the evening after work or after whatever. And she says, even though they were still feuding and she was upset, she said he would be the one to make the tea. He would still make the tea and bring it. So the
Oh, that's a
conflict
wonderful
had
story.
nothing to do with his responsibility, his
Yes.
love, his care, and his affection. And he would
Mm.
make it and bring it to her. She says very often when she, by the time she took the third sip of tea, she said she would melt because she says, "Look at this." Yeah. And he would do it and say nothing. Not
Mhm.
at him coming and say, see a tea, no, the same kind of gentle way. And she said,
Absolutely.
if nothing else, and she says there are lots of things that she admired and missed him for, but that was really, I thought that
Mm.
was very profound.
Absolutely,
Very profound.
absolutely, So
And
it's how you handle each other in conflict
yes,
is the main thing,
absolutely.
not the conflict itself.
Yes. So the conflict in and of itself did not interfere with what
Mm-hmm.
they already have. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because they
Absolutely.
saw it as a moment passing, as a thing that was just okay. So we're gonna talk it through. We're gonna disagree, and sometimes you have to agree to disagree, because
Mm-hmm.
you
For
will
sure.
never really meet the minds. Another
Absolutely.
one is the common interests will keep you together.
Mm.
Is that really a
Again,
myth?
I absolutely not. It helps for sure.
Yes,
It is
yes,
one of what we would call a resource,
yes,
something
yes,
that can bolster the marriage, but it certainly is not enough. You have to be deliberate about handling
yes.
conflict. You have to be deliberate about handling your friendship, about
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you always treat the person with respect, that you never take the person for granted, when you see them
Absolutely.
shining, that you're able to validate and say, that
Yes,
was good, congratulate them. When they do something for you, you're able to express appreciation. All of those
yes,
things
yes.
build that
So
sense of connection and friendship. Those are
yes.
deliberate acts you also have to take at the same time.
Yes. So that's a truth. Yeah, because
Mhm,
our discussion involves truths and
mhm,
myths. So that is in
mhm,
fact a truth that common
mhm,
interests
mhm.
will and can keep you together.
Can
Um,
help for sure.
and another one, never go to bed angry. And that is something that has always been said, and at wedding to hear it touted a lot to the couples. Never go to bed angry. Um,
Mhm.
that's a truth, or you think it's a myth?
Definitely a myth. Definitely a myth because what Dr. Gottman found, for example, is that the longer you stay up trying to
Mm,
handle a conflict, is the worse your conflict management skills become. You
right.
know, the more
Yes. Yes.
exhausted you are, is the more irritable you are. The more
Mm,
exhausted you are, is harder it is for you to see your partner's point
mm.
of view. And
Okay.
the more exhausted you are, the more easy it is for your fight or flight response to trigger and you get flooded. And you're only going
Yes.
to fight or you're only going to shut down, either or.
Right.
So it was important to know when you needed to stop the conversation,
Yes. Yes.
separate, regroup your resources,
Sleep on it.
self-soothe, bring down your heart rate,
Yes.
calm
Yes.
down so that you're in a better position to handle the conversation, the conflict after. What is true
Yes.
though, you should never leave a conflict unresolved or unaddressed for an interminable amount of
Time,
time,
period of time.
because some
Yes.
people,
Yes.
once they go to bed and they've stopped talking about it, they don't ever come back to it, and that is
Yes.
where the
Yes.
problem
And
is.
that is where the problem is. Major,
Yes.
major problem.
Mm, for sure.
So we're heading to our final break, and this is Family Time, live on Love 101 FM, YouTube, and Facebook. It's produced by Family Life Ministries. Our feedback question, and please send us your answers. It is, what myths can you share about marriage? Send your answers via WhatsApp text and WhatsApp voice notes to 876 997 3125. Um, Try to keep your voice notes to a low of 30 seconds. And you can watch us and comment live on Love 101 FM Facebook and Love 101 FM YouTube. We want to hear from you. Please, please, please don't go away. It's 6:15 and we're going to go straight into our final break. Soon come.
Life is on the go. But you got this runs with boneless be nothing made easy to prepare. Healthy, tasty, have it anytime, anywhere. Fuel your body day and night with the taste of the seaside. There's no challenge you can find with Brunswick boneless sardines by your side. Life doesn't slow down, and neither do you. Brunswick boneless sardines are packed with omega-3 and ready to eat right out of the can. Try the hot peppers, the delicious olive oil, or the new spicy Thai chili on its own or on a cracker. However you like it. Brunswick boneless sardines. Snacking made easy, snacking made healthy, snacking made tasty.
Welcome back to Family Time. My name is Joan Pinkney, and I am your host for the program Family Time. It's now 6:16, and you're tuned to Love 101. Family Time was brought to you by Family Life Ministries. Family Life Ministries provides counseling, all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Remember, you can tune in to the program via our Love 101 Facebook page and our YouTube channel. This evening, we've been talking about myths and truths about marriage, and our special guest is Sonia Winter. So, Lady Sonia, but before we go to Lady Sonia's comment, let's take a text message from Sister Mahoney of Lila's Vale. She says, good afternoon. As long as God is in your marriage, it will work until death do us part. And we have to say amen. But we also know that each member of the couple must adhere, to what God is saying, because he's very much present. But we also have to listen to what he has to say and to take responsibility for us. So we totally agree with you, Sister Mahoney, and thank you so much for your contribution. So, Lady Sonia, as we wind down, tell us, what role can the church play in all of this, and what are some of the resources that we can tap in to help us with these myths and these misunderstandings and these sayings, which some of them, yes, hold true, but some of them don't.
I think the most powerful gift that the church gives to any couple is preaching the gospel of commitment. A big part of our faith is about commitment to our marriage, and commitment is, I often say that commitment is only relevant in the tough times. Any other time, commitment doesn't matter. But commitment is what gives you an attitude of, we're going through a tough time now, a tough season, and I am going to stick it out and work my hardest to get through this season. That's the very definition of commitment. And I think the fact that that is an important hallmark of the Christian faith, about the commitment to this marriage, for the long haul, is a resource that we all benefit from, to the extent that we can live that philosophy in our relationships. Outside of that, I would say that the church is really wonderful in terms of education about what are some of the skills that are important to handle conflict, for example. What are some of the skills that, how do you express and maintain respect for your partner? All of those are important skills. Respect for your partner, particularly when you don't share their point of view, particularly when the relationship is conflict fraught, as it were. How do you treat this person with whom you're having a huge misalignment, disagreement with? I think how our faith teaches us to handle those situations, to handle conduct ourselves, and to treat our partner are
Right.
really some of the powerful gifts that our faith
Yes.
and the church can give us, separate and apart from
Absolutely.
skills building, as it were.
Yes.
You
Yes.
have a lot of cell groups, prayer groups, different groups within the church that actually do education that can help individuals to acquire skills that can help them to confront stressors together in a more
And
effective way.
absolutely. And when children come into the mix of marriage, it it really can get complicated if we're not at a place where we're prepared, to understand and to deal with things as they come. And so what you've just said, the whole matter of tapping into some of those resources to help you to navigate. Very often people feel that because I'm a Christian, I'm saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, water baptized, Jesus on my mind, that I'm good to go. But we know statistics, unfortunately, has shown us that that does not necessarily compute. And so we really should tap into those resources as you have shared. Any
Mhm.
final words before we go to a wrap up?
I think we didn't get to speak much about the matter of trust. That's
Yes.
another important component, and trust is something, again, an endeavor within a marriage that requires effort, requires
Mm,
maintenance, requires sacrifice, requires self sacrifice, sometimes sacrifice of your own needs, putting someone
mm.
else someone said we
Thank
have
you.
time for that. Putting someone else's needs ahead of yours, your immediate
Yes.
needs for the time being, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Trying to um demonstrate to somebody else that you will be there for them. They can
Mm,
trust that you will be there for them,
yes.
um,
Yes.
is an important resource of relationships as well. In fact, a myth, a huge myth around trust is that once it's broken, it cannot be repaired, and that is
Yes.
not so.
That is not so.
There's a
That
lot
is
of
not so.
evidence that shows that if you take very deliberate steps, you
You
can
can
go through the
repair it.
process of trust rebuilding.
Right. And very
Um,
often it is felt that the onus is on the person who caused the trust to be broken to repair it.
mhm,
And one of the things that is important for the couple to realize that both persons have to be willing. So I have to be willing to forgive you, and you
mhm,
have to be willing to seek forgiveness.
for sure.
And then I can't be saying, to be bringing it up all the time, even though I've said that I've forgiven you. One
Mhm.
myth that I'd like us to quickly jump on before we go: living together before marriage is wise.
Mm. Hmm. I think that I don't have that one. I want to dance around a little bit
Mm,
because I
mm,
always prefer to speak on empirical evidence, what has
right,
research shown.
right.
I think that um, living together is not necessarily as a recipe for success or a
Mhm,
recipe for failure per se, is
right,
what I would say. You know what I
right,
mean? I
right.
think that what is more important is what you do when you do decide to get married. From
Right.
what do we do then?
Hmm.
We're going to discover, if we didn't live together, we're going to discover things we didn't know before, so that's
Ah,
going to be a stressor, right?
right,
How is our commitment going to help us to ride through that stressor or not? That's the most
right,
important thing.
right.
You know what I mean? If you live together, you're going to know the person on one level, perhaps, but that
Yes.
doesn't make you immune to new
Having
findings that are
issues.
difficult
Yes.
once you get
Absolutely.
married after, and so on. So I don't know that living together in and of itself can
Right.
be deemed as a disaster or a magic pill.
Yes.
Either
To make
way.
things work. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. What about children? Children bringing us closer as a couple?
Oh, not necessary. Absolutely. In fact, most interesting studies. There were about, I think I number maybe about 30 studies that Gottman did, which was so interesting, which showed that many couples have a certain level of marital satisfaction. And when the
Mm,
first child comes into their life, that level of satisfaction takes a huge dip. And for
mm,
many couples, it does not come back up to the
Yes.
previous levels. Some it does, but many it doesn't come back up to the same level as before, because
Mm.
this little baby, as much joy as it brings a lot of
Mm.
stress.
A lot of stress,
You talk
man.
about the man earlier getting his what was it, you find his life, his youth paper or whatever. I mean,
Yes.
a man's whole sense of himself changes completely once he
Mm.
now has this responsibility of a child,
Yes.
almost,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
mother, a woman, her sense of self changes dramatically. Who she is, what her
Mm.
priority is, all of those things change dramatically, and it
Yes.
often affects the union. And without commitment,
Mhm.
it can be a very stressful time, good and bad stress, that the couple has to be committed to working through.
Yes. Yes. So we've said a mouthful, a mouthful, a mouthful. What one thing would you want to leave with the listeners?
Yeah. What's the one thing? I guess
Mm.
what we have come back to each time in what we have shared, Dr. J, is the importance of commitment, and just to
Mhm.
remind the people that whatever your faith is, whatever your philosophy is, you are not going to be immune from crisis in your relationship, in your
Yeah,
marriage, right? Whether it is a
absolutely.
crisis because of a stage of life, a a biological stage of life, or it is something happening outside your marriage. There are going to be stressors and crises between you and upon you both. And
Yes,
it's
yes,
really commitment, a determination to negotiate, to try to understand the other person's point of view, to
yes,
keep
yes.
talking it through. That is going
Mm.
to get you. That is what is a better formula for success, um,
Yes,
than
thank
not
you.
having any troubles at all.
Yes, absolutely. We have a voice note from Suzette. Can we hear it?
Good afternoon, family time again.
Mm. Good
Without
afternoon.
a deposit, you cannot make a withdrawal. And
Right.
some of us are making big withdrawal on our marriage when we're not depositing the work to keep the marriage going.
Mm.
But faith is important and the Lord is important, and without God, we cannot do anything. But marriage is tough work. You
Yeah.
have to put in a deposit before you can make a withdrawal. And you cannot withdraw more than that which you have deposit. You always have to leave something in the kitty. You can't deposit out the withdrawal more than what you are depositing. Else you're going to run into a negative deficit.
Yes, and you can't take a loan because that would be going into another territory. Absolutely profound, Suzette. Thank you so much for that contribution. You're really making some profound statements, and it's true, right? Right, Lady Winter, that sometimes
For sure.
we're not giving as much as we should be giving, the kind of commitment and energy that we should be giving within the marriage. Yet we are expecting super more than we're giving. Sounds like we've had a mouthful plus stacks, and so I want to thank you so much for sharing, and it's really been good having you. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for sharing as you have so ably. So, listeners, please, if you have any questions of any personal nature and you're concerned about a friend or family member, call us. Call us at Family Life Ministries. For more information, contact our head office at 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. We have counselors in Kingston and other parts of the island, and so we're waiting for you to make contact with us. Note that for appointments and information on costs, you must um, call our offices. Otherwise, to keep up to date with what's happening with FLM and our programs, check us out on our new Facebook page, FLM Family Life Ministries. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries FLMJA, and Instagram at simply FLMJA. Before we leave, here is a reminder taken from 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 7. But have nothing to do with godliness, godless myth. Let me go again. But have nothing to do with godless myths and old wives' tales. Rather, train yourself to be godly. It was such a pleasure to have been here with you this evening. Thank you so much for staying with us. Join us next week for another interesting and informative program. Thanks again to our special guest, Lady Sonia Winter. Thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale. And big up to our Deborah Graham for piloting us through this hour. And of course, you take care. Thank you for being with us and have a great week. I'm Joan Pinkney. Bye.